por mim, assim que acabar a minha apresentação, já pode parar de gravar.
Oi, do YouTube. Não, Carla.
Hello, Carla.
Hello, how are you?
So, Ali, Carla, the audio is okay for you?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Professor Carla. Good afternoon, Professor Ali. I'd like to thank you very much, Carla and Ali, for your time with us. I also would like to thank you, Olga's friends, the students of my research group, and the audience in YouTube. Ali, Carla, just for you know, the first part, only the presentation of the Carla, we are transmitting in the channel of the program in YouTube. And as Olga finished, we will close the transmission, okay? And right now, Olga is going to realize the presentation of her research that it's part of her dissertation defense. Olga, you have close to 30 minutes, okay? So, go ahead.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, everyone. Good morning. So I'm going to start. Hello, everyone. I am Olga Mendes, and this is my master's thesis defense. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today, especially the assessment committee and Professor Ana Paula Laroca, my advisor. Also, I'd like to thank Professor Ali and Professor Carla for the collaboration you have given in the whole process. I really appreciate that. Well, the research I have developed is about the assessment of the highway safety manual crash predictions, the assessment of the transferability, of the highway safety manual crash prediction model for divided highways, rural highways in Brazil. As we know, the reduction of traffic mortality is one of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals that aims to ensure a healthy life and promote well-being for all of all ages. One of the targets was to have the number of global deaths and injuries for road traffic crashes, but the target has not been met by 2020, which enforces that there is still a long path to meeting the target. As a response for those measures, the number of people killed by road crashes in Brazil have been decreasing year by year after the decade of actions for road safety, as known as DARS, implementation. Just to illustrate the traffic mortality in Brazil, the graph in figure 1 shows the number of fatal crashes on federal highways, which has national relevance. Although it is decreasing, the proportion of the fatal crashes in Brazil has increased since the implementation of the DARS, as it is shown in figure 2, which highlights the relevance of the maintenance of road safety actions. With that said, my research aims to contribute to the crash reduction and to the road safety conditions improvement. This could be met by exploring tools as the Highway Safety Manual for highway manager agencies, or even for departments of transportation in Brazil. And that would be the importance to transferring the HSM prediction model to Brazilian highways, which I have been doing through analysis of the São Paulo State Road Crash Database. So generally, on the literature, the crash prediction models explain crashes as a driving performance that do not suit the skills that the road environment demands, either due to the traffic flow, the geometry attributes, and others. Then, for many years, researchers have been developing safety performance functions, as known as SPFs, which are statistical models that estimate the crash rate for a given period or exposure. So the HSM was created for guiding people that work with highway safety, either researchers or professionals. The general function of the HSM is this one showed right here, where N predict is the predicted average crash frequency, and it is the product of those parameters. The NSF, SPF, which is the predicted average number of crashes for base conditions of the SPF, developed for a facility type. And the CX, that is the calibration factor to adjust the SPF for a specific local condition. And there are the CMFs, that are crash modification factors specific to road characteristic types. As I said, the CMFs, they are specific crash modification factors for each highway feature. So the lane, the right shoulder, and the median width, the presence of lighting, and automated speed enforcement. So for this research, each CMF was adapted to the metric system and to the Brazilian geometric aspects. As I said, there are individual SPFs for each road facility type. So as I'm working with multi-lane divided rural highways, there is a specific SPF for that. And there is one base condition for this function. The base condition is closely related to the CMFs because they are the conditions in which the SPF was developed. During the analysis, if the roadway characteristics met the base conditions, the CMF's value is 1. So, for this case, they are 12 feet for lane width, 8 feet for right shoulder width, 30 feet for median width, no lightning, and no automated speed enforcement. Also, the HSM recommends to apply the method to each road direction separately, and to use the combined traffic volume to obtain the average of the predicted crash frequencies. The NSPF for rural multi-lane highways depends on the annual average daily traffic, also known as AADT, for each year by segment, and on the segment length, as shown on the equation. The number which divides the segment length represents the conversion of kilometers to miles. The regression coefficients A and B are presented on the HSM. To provide more reliable results, the HSM recommends applying the empirical Bayes method, so-called EB method, after first calibration. The EB method should be applied to best estimate the expected numbers of crashes for a single site by weighting the predicted crash frequency by the observed crashes. So the EB method includes these equations. After defining the K value for every studied segment, the next step is to apply the site-specific adjustment, where K is used to obtain the weighted adjustment to be placed on the predictive model estimation. The expected number of crashes is estimated based on the predicted and observed number of crashes. The weight depends basically on the length of the segment. So the higher that length, the higher the weight will be on the observed crashes. The purpose of the calibration factor, also called CX, is to adjust the predictive models which were developed with data from one jurisdiction for application in another place. In addition, measuring the goodness of fit of the model, as known as GOF, of the model is very important to assess how well an SPF developed for a different dataset fits the observed data. Quantifying it to compare different results is essential. The most common measures to forecast are the mean absolute percentage error, which I called MAPE, and the mean absolute deviance, as known as MAP. In recent studies, the root mean square error, RMSE, is also often applied to evaluate the accuracy of prediction models, and those are their equations. So, by reviewing several publications in the road safety subject, many works had studied about the transferability of the HSM predictive model and its parameters for different countries since the HSM publication. Here it is summarized the most important publications to my research, which are the works placed in Brazil. I'd like to highlight the work developed by Weirick and Andrade because it matches the facility type of my research, which is the multi-lane rural highways. While this research was being developed, the COVID-19 pandemic was taking place, an unexpected and sad scenario that turned out to be good for evaluating the predictive model. So, searching the literature, a lot has been published about how traffic flow has decreased, but what about the road safety? Well, this topic is still being investigated around the world, but what we know is that there was a substantial increase in the severity severity of the crashes. Researchers attributed this phenomenon to increased speed, emptier traffic lanes, reduced law enforcement, non-use of seatbelts, and alcohol and drug abuse. Finally, a good way to evaluate the HSM SPF for non-seeing data was by comparing the calibrated predicted number of crashes and the data count in 2020 for their studied segments. So for starting this work, 5 highways in the state of São Paulo managed through a concession were analyzed. The studied segments belong to the highways SP 255, SP 318, SP 330, SP 334, and SP 345. And this is the location map of the roads in São Paulo state. Here you can see the position of the traffic detection sensors, which have been counting the traffic volume in these points. Those locations were very important for the first step of segmentation procedure. As you can see, each sensor location have helped at the first step of segmentation procedure, because I could have a start point and an end point by that. Therefore, the placement of the sensor determines the volume influence section. Besides that, the availability of the ADT historical data was also very important to the methodology. Well, as I said, the predictive model applies a safety performance function for each individual roadway segment. To assure that ones which have the same characteristics are evaluated as equal, the first step is having the homogeneous segments. A new homogeneous segment begins at the center of an intersection or where there is a change in at least one of the road conditions. So this is the part of the networking screening, which is the first step of the methodology. So having the ADT data availability, we can have the first step of segmentation procedure. Then, with the geometric aspect definition, we have the second step of segmentation procedure. And with the crash historical local data, we can assign the crash occurrence to each segment. At the second step of the segmentation procedure, I had to use an orthogonal projection of the road, and then I could check the information by Google Earth. This graph shows the frequency of the segment length, which presented a greater number of segments with smaller length. After the network screening, we have to select a roadway segment, select first or next year of the evaluation period, to select and apply at the SPF, to apply the CMFs. Then we have to apply the calibration factor and obtain the N predicted. Then we have to apply the EB method and obtain the N expected. Then we sum all sites and years and compare and evaluate the results. Talking about results, we have the CX, the calibration factor. The closer the local calibration factor is to 1, the more similar the road networks are to the condition in which the model was developed. The value of CX of 2.62 for total crashes and CX of 2.35 for FI crashes shows similarities to Weyrich and Andrade, which found the CX of 2.37 for the state of Minas Gerais. This graph shows the comparison of the calibrated and predicted and the observed total and FI crashes to the center line. The model's output closer to the center line is considered more reliable as the predicted data is closer to the observed data. Therefore, it highlights the dispersion of total crashes compared to FI crashes. Also, points below the center line indicates that the model underestimates the observed data, while points above the center line show the overestimation of the observed data. Those graphs compares the calibrated and predicted and the unexpected with n observed for total and FI crashes. Again, the model's output following the center line is considered more reliable since the observed data is closer to the predicted data. On the graph of total types of crashes, on the left, the points seem denser and closer to the center line, while under the center line trend, they seem loose. This indicates that the over-predicted points are usually closer to matching the observed points than the under-predicted ones. For the FI, since it represents a smaller sample, changing the graph scale allows having a clearer perception of the model's performance. Again, the predicted values are denser above the center line than under. However, most unexpected for FI crashes are under the center line, meaning that most of the expected values under-predicted the FI observed crashes. Thus, the EB method did not have the same performance as for all types of crashes. Here, the expected crashes are more scattered, and the results indicate under-prediction. So the goodness of fit tests measure how well the predicted and the expected crashes were fitted after performing the calibration procedure. For the Gulf parameters presented, the smaller the value, the better the model fit, except for R-squared, which was obtained through the previous showed graphs. As expected, after applying the EB method, the estimated values fit the observed data quite well. The MED, the MAPE, and the RMCE-SE show that for the final step, after the EB application, the total crash model performs better than the FI. The results indicate that the FI crashes have more prediction errors, which might be explained by the significant difference between total and the FI crash count. About the COVID-19 pandemic, the first graph represents the PDO crashes, and the second one shows the traffic-related fatalities on state highways in 2019, 2020, and 2021. There is a significant difference in PDO crashes between April of 2019 and April of 2020, representing a 40% reduction in PDO crash counts. The highest reduction of fatal crashes was also between April 2019 and April 2020, about 27%. Although the lockdown started on March 22nd of 2020 in the state of São Paulo, the impact was more significant in April 2020. The graph also presents the moving average of crashes considering an interval of 12 months, showing the crash reduction for that period. In this graph right here, the variation of fatal crashes and AADT with the average and the counts of the previous years is shown. The suggestion is that the negative variation of crashes is related to the reduction of AADT caused by the disease control measures at the time. Thus, to explore the impact of the COVID-19 On the studied segments, the observed and estimated crash data from 2016 to 2020 are presented in those charts. The decrease in crashes in 2020 compared to the average of the previous 4 years is about 20% and 11% for all types of crashes and FI crashes respectively. The 2020 AADT data allowed the crash prediction for 2020 since the HSM prediction model is based on AADT values and segment length. Therefore, the calibration factors obtained were used to calculate the calibrated and predicted. The 4 previous years' data was the baseline to obtain the parameters used to apply the AB method, allowing the calculation to obtain the unexpected as well. So, since the AADT has also changed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the NSPF reflects the impact of the pandemic. Nevertheless, the N observed was still about 10% lower than the calibrated and predicted for all types of crashes. On the other hand, the calibrated prediction of FI crashes is highly close to the observed counts. This could indicate that the model performs well in predicting unseen data. For MED and RMCE-SE, the FI demonstrates a better model adjustment to the actual inputs. On the other hand, the MAPE and R-squared indicate that using all types of crashes has succeeded in the model adjustment. The high MAPE value for 2020 is explained due to the standard reduction of crashes, while the model was based on the previous years. The GOV tests applied after the AB application, including the 2020 data, show that the model performs better using all types of crashes. So, finally, it is relevant to note that Brazilian data is generally not always easy to obtain, and multiple heterogeneous variables make it difficult to generate SPFs valid to the entire country. That is why applying a calibrated version can bring insights into a data-driven approach that would be impossible if it weren't not the HSM equations. Thus, comparing the GOV parameters, most of them presented better results for the prediction using all types of crashes, which indicates that the underreporting of crashes does not affect the model validity. Furthermore, the research indicates that the model performs well in predicting unseen data. Therefore, the main objective of this research were to help jurisdictions identify factors that contribute to car crashes, support decision makers in evaluating road safety countermeasures in Brazil, and to be a tool to support the prospecting of resources for implementing countermeasures to increase traffic safety. So, as a suggestion for future work, as the local aggregation process impacts the HSM SPF calibration procedure, it is suggested that future studies may use calibration functions and different calibration methods to improve the accuracy of crash prediction when developing a model that is not feasible. Other GOVs, such as curve plots, chi-square, and coefficient of variation, may be used by future studies as well, focusing on jurisdiction-specific SPFs development for local conditions. Likewise, some additional questions about the frequency of SPF calibration and temporal transferability can bring more insights into this research topic in the future. And that would be it. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you, Olga. Very good presentation. Right now, we will finish the presentation in YouTube channel, and I thank you, the audience. Carlos, você pode parar a transmissão no canal do YouTube. Obrigada.